Salvete, discipuli. Nomen mihi est David Artorius. Sum magister Latinitatis, et hic est linguae mortae viventes. Hodea, ante diem quintum idus Januarias, doceo vos literas linguae Latinae, et locutionem rectum. So the first thing we should be talking about is the Latin alphabet. And it appears right here in all its 21-letter glory. Now these 21 letters are in an order that we're pretty much familiar with. But as I keep emphasizing, it's 21 letters, not the 26 that English speakers are familiar with. Well, this is the classical Latin alphabet. Over time, additional letters are going to be added in, like these two right here, Y and Z to my American, my American accent. Y and Z are going to be added into the Latin alphabet during the 1st century BC, during our classical period. This is to give Latins a chance to spell out all those really cool Greek words that they want to use. These two sounds don't really have an easy place in the Latin language, don't really have a really easy place in the alphabet. So we're going to go ahead and add these two letters. And we're going to do it right at the end. Just put them at the end. X, Y, Z. All right. All right. These next two letters right here, J and V, are going to be added in to differentiate two different sounds that two letters, I and U, they pronounce. They're what we call semi-vowels. They're sometimes vowels, sometimes consonants, right? A, E, O, and sometimes I and U. Just like Y in the English could be a vowel in terms of sky, or a consonant in words like yet, I and U play this double duty. And some scribes at some point just didn't like that, and so they're gonna make this change. And we can see that there's not really a big change in the shape. And so let's go ahead and add these letters to the alphabet right after, right? I, J, U, V. Just add it right after. No problem. This last letter, the 26th letter of the alphabet that we call our Latin alphabet, the W. Okay, it gets its name from its shape. Of all these letters, this is the one that we're not going to be using in this course. It doesn't appear in classical Latin. It only appears in late manuscripts as a sound to come into non-Latin words after the V has changed from its W to its modern V sound. They needed something to keep that W sound. But again, we're not worrying about this one, so let's just cut it out. So here it is, our 25-word Latin, 25-letter Latin alphabet. This is the one that we'll be using this entire course. Before we talk about how to correctly pronounce all of these things, I have to define what I mean by correctly pronounce, because there are lots of different ways to pronounce Latin words, and I am not going to say that any of them is wrong. The last lesson I talked about how Latin as a language lives on through its daughter languages, and how it's kind of become this international language just because of its status, right? So any of these languages has a pretty big right to claim that their pronunciation, their Latin, is the daughter language, is the correct pronunciation. I'm not going to argue that. I think there's a claim to it. To hear an Italian speak Latin, oh, it's beautiful. It sounds amazing. But it's not necessarily the sound that our Latin speakers, our Ciceros, our Caesars, our Ovids. This isn't necessarily the sound of the language that they would have put out there. Now, why does this matter? Why does this matter at all? Why do I even need to figure out how to pronounce Latin at all? It's a good question. And, well, when we're reading a language, most of us will undergo a process called subvocalization, that we kind of pronounce it a little bit as we go through the page. And this is a normal part of our gaining reading fluency in a language. If we don't have a way to pronounce words, it slows this reading down. Now, if you're a grammarian and you love this whole grammar translation method of learning Latin, and what you want to do is translate, you don't need pronunciation. You don't need it. But I think for most of us, what we're looking for, what we want out of the language is to read it. We want to be able to read Latin. We don't care about being able to translate it beautifully. We want to be able to pick up a piece of literature and enjoy it. Well, for that we're going to need a pronunciation system. And I'm going to make the case for what's commonly called restituta, this restored, this classical pronunciation system. And I'm going to make this case because it's as close as we can get, based on a number of educated guesses and meticulous research. It's as close as we can get to what it actually sounded like to the people who were writing all of this stuff. And, I mean, all this wordplay, all of these sounds, all of poetry requires, it's this marriage of meaning and sound together. When we put them together and we do it in the way that they probably spoke, when we get the sounds that they intended, it makes it sound that much. It doesn't make it sound any better, I apologize, but it does give us this sense, this feeling. It gives us this fullness to the text. Now, restored classical pronunciation is largely documented in this book right here, Vox Latina, by William Sidney Allen. And meticulously researched, and it has for a long time been the gold standard of what Latin should sound like. But it is a little old at this point, and research has continued. And so I recommend, along with this, anyone really interested in this topic, take a look at the paper on the evolution of short high vowels of Latin into Romance by Dr. Andrea Calabrese, who, in a sense, kind of builds on to what Allen has done in Vox Latina. All right, so let's look at the vowels first. Latin has 5 vowels: A, E, I, O, U. The pronunciation, based on the works of and research of Andrea Calabrese, suggests that they each had a single quality to their sound. Latin, like many Romance languages, differentiates between short and long vowels, but it appears as though they were just longer. So we have with this letter A, for example, right? We have the short A, ah, ah. Then the long A, ah, ah. As in English, father, ah, 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 ah. E, likewise, right? We have short and long. The only difference would be their length. E. Oh, I apologize. The only difference would be their length. E, 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 e. Men, e, e. E, 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 e. O, 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 o. U, 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 u. The short vowels, a, e, o, u. And long vowels, a, e, o, u. And then we have one more vowel, this Greek Y, this upsilon. For English speakers, I do apologize. This is not a sound that we make. We have this Ü from like the German über. For those of us who have problems making this sound, replacing the Ü with a long U is an acceptable alternative and one that Latin speakers would make. One that we see inscriptions that mistake a Y for a long U on occasion. So if you just are like, oh goodness gracious, I don't wanna try to make that sound, that U sound. Just go U. It's fine. Right, we're aiming for a reasonable facsimile here, something that sounds good to our ears. In addition to single vowel sounds, Latin, like many languages, has vowel sounds that combine together. In these, when we have two vowel sounds that come together, we have this word diphthong. And there's 6 major diphthongs in Latin. The 2 most common, right here, I, as in hi, and ow, as in how. I, ow. I, ow. Additionally, we have ew, oi, we. Our 6 major diphthongs in Latin: I, ow, a, ew, oi, we. Right, well, it'd be kind of boring if we had a language and that's all we had, just a bunch of vowels. Latin consonants are kind of beautiful in the fact that there's generally one pronunciation for each of the letters. A couple letters have a second pronunciation that comes in as they come into contact with other letters, just to make our mouth shape a little easier. But all you really need to know is that first pronunciation. You can make a good sounding Latin from it. Those of you guys that that want to speak Latin as a living language, those of you guys who want to join this growing but still very small community of Latin speakers, might try to get some of these sounds out, because it makes speaking it a little easier. All right, so let's take a look at our consonants in Latin. We have here B, or B. It's always B, as in basket, except when followed by a T or an S. And to make that shift from a b to, right, from where they are vocalized in the mouth, it will shift forward from a b to a p. Not so like this word, English word here, aptitude. Right? We wouldn't try to pronounce it aptitude. It's just hard to move that sound. So we'll just move aptitude. Okay, cool. B as a b, unless we have to shift the sound like in a T or an S, and then we make it a p sound. C is always going to be this hard k sound. Never soft as in city, never like the Italian città. It's going to be k, as in cat. D, d, as in adorn, or David. F, as in fact. F. G is going to always be the hard G in English words like gate. Never going to be softened like j. It's always g. H is pronounced in Latin, this breathy h, right? Hic. Huius. We have this H sound that exists in many English dialects. I know it's not pronounced in some English dialects, it's not pronounced in Italian, but it is in Latin. Consonantal I and J have this y sound, as in yet. The letter K is identical to C in almost every aspect. So again, it's going to be a k sound and never a s, never a ch. It's always a k. L, l. Right. So Magister Latinitatis, this la. M as a sound is going to be like the English word mother, mama. At the end of the word, it kind of nasalizes the vowel and kind of gets swallowed. Sorry, today being the 5th day before the Ides of January. Diem sextum, diem quintum. Diem quintum. I could just as easily go quintum and just really make sure I say that M. But there's some good evidence that it kind of got swallowed up, like quintum, which is gonna be effective a little bit later. The letter N. This is one of those ones that just kind of, because it's a nasal, the N in net. It kind of glides with a lot of letters. Before C, G, and Q, we get this right? Anger, right? Anger. Before M, P, B, we get the shift to right? In plus penetrable. We have the English word impenetrable. We don't say impenetrable. It's because we want this to put our sounds in the same place as the mouth. Lazy mouth. That's all it is. Yeah. All right, moving on to P. Pink. Q. Another k, but it follows with a U. So we have a qua as in quick. The Latin R trills a little bit. This rolled trill. Roma. Magister. Those of you who can't roll R's or are unfamiliar with it, a tapped R, or in English R, will suffice. Moving on, S, right? This is a S sound, as in sight. It's never going to be a Z, as in has. It's going to be the sight. T as in tempt, time. U and V as a consonantal sound will be a W, wise. X has our K sound, box. Z as a letter is a Z sound, as in lads. Z. And that's that. Those are our Latin consonants. They for many of them, they appear right as they would off the page. For many of them, it's just a matter of just looking at the letter and pronouncing it as you would expect. All right, so taking these individual words and combining them into sentences and full units of speech is our next challenge for ourselves. And for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward process. You speak one word, then you speak another, then you speak another. There we go, we're at the end. Occasionally, you'll have one word that ends in a vowel, and it's followed by a word that begins in a vowel. And through a process we can call vowel junction, the two kind of blend together to be a single unit of sound. The most common of which is what the Latins are going to call elision, where the first vowel sound drops away in favor of the second. This is the most common one, and if you wanted to get a pretty good sound of Latin speech, but don't care much beyond pretty good, elision is the one. Elision, it sounds really good when you speak it. So let's take an example of it. We have right here a phrase that Suetonius is going to attribute to Julius Caesar as he's crossing the Rubicon River. Right? He's crossing into Italy with his army, effectively declaring war on the Roman Republic. And he says, the die has been cast. Chills. Jacta est alea. Well, spoken critically, jacta est alea. Well, jacta est, right? If you want to speak quickly, you have to take a moment and you have to cut the sound out. Jacta est. The Latin's called hiatus, and they didn't really like that sound, that stopping the flow of air. So what they'll do is they'll drop away that A, that jacta est becomes jactest. Jactest. Oh, I like the sound of that, man. Jactest alea. And that's it. If you want to have a pretty good sound of Latin, learn that rule. Learn elision, and you'll sound pretty good. If you want to follow a little bit more what we know, we can dive in a little bit more. Long I's and long U's are gonna, when they're the beginning, when they're at the end. Sorry, when they're the first of the two vowels. So a word ends in a long I or a long U. Rather than dropping away because it's a long vowel that wants to be there, they'll slip away into a consonant. Right, so we have this first three words of a poem from the poet Catullus, where he reads, "Odi et amor, odi et amor." I hate and I love. All right. Well, this I, this od, that I wants to be there, and so when it comes together with this et, we could say odet, but that I really wants to be there. So it would probably be more of an like odiet. That I is just going to slip into a consonantal, a ya, odiet, odietamo. We're starting to sound. We're starting to turn it to sound into like this breathing language, which is a really cool task when you have this dead language and it just starts to sound real. Now, other long vowels, the A, the E, the O, they want to be there too. And when they could, they would try to elide. I'm sorry, they would elide. They would try to join in and contract into a single diphthong sound with the vowel that follows them. This didn't always happen. If there was no available diphthong, it might have broken into hiatus. And they didn't really like the sound of that, so they would have tried to move words around so it just wouldn't happen. But when we have this situation, this long vowel followed by another vowel that it can make a diphthong with, we have something like this. Continuing Catullus's O diatamo poem, the next line, sorry, the same line, the end of it, reads, I'm going to look down at my notes. Quare id faciam fortasse requires. Well, this quare id, and that E followed by an I. Well, we do have that. We do have that available as a diphthong, EI. So it's likely that we were just, quare id, rather than just quared. It would just be quared. Take that EI into that A sound, quared. 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 And so that whole line might, O diatamo, quared faciam fortasse requiris. All right. I can move on. That's really the basic vowels and vowels together. But we have these two consonants, this nasal M. As I said earlier, it kind of gets swallowed up into the vowel itself. An M at the end of the word is still going to elide as if it weren't there. And H not being a full consonant itself, just kind of being this h, this breathing h, it's going to fall away as well. So we take a look at the last half of the first sentence of Julius Caesar's account of the Gallic Wars. There it is right there. Quarum unam inculant Belgae aliam Aquitani. Okay, we have these first words. Quarum unam. Well, this UN combination. The M isn't there. The M is not strong enough to keep this vowel junction from happening. So they're gonna come together. So we're gonna have something along the lines of, right, this quarunam incolont Belgae, and then again with this aliam Aquitani, which that M is not strong enough to keep him as a different sound. So we end with aliaquitani. So we can read that whole line. Quarunam inculant Belgae aliaquitani. All right, and there we go. That is our vowel junction. Those are all of them. I have more exercises for you to go ahead and take a look at in the course document, and then I will provide readings of all of the things I'll be asking you guys to read, so that when you finish, you'll be able to take a look at it. Our final task for this lesson is to give and ask for spelling of a word. Now, it's one of the first tasks that we get to receive any kind of mastery in a language. Right? Rather than having to ask in English, how do you spell this? We can ask it in Latin, and we can give the answer in Latin. Well, the easiest and one of the most valid ways to ask this would be this phrase right here. Quo modo, in what way, or how. Right? Quo modo, and then the word you're going to ask for, scribitur. Quo modo scribitur. Some example sentences, right? Quo modo video scribitur. How do I write down I see? Quo modo Caesar scribitur. How do I write Caesar? Quo modo solicitudo scribitur. How do you write down anxiety? Which I'm feeling a lot right now, making a new YouTube channel. Now, to do this, to go ahead and spell out these words, we're going to need to know how the letters were pronounced in Latin. And you have A, B, K, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, X. And then our Greek letters, we'd have H and Zeta. Putting J and V on this is a little bit challenging, given the fact that, again, they're not, they weren't letters that native Latins would have really thought of as being part of the alphabet, because they are just I and V. They are just E and U. E and U, sorry. So that'd be one way to do it, is just to say I or U instead of the place of J or V. Another option would be to use this word consonans, meaning consonant, right? Consonans E, consonans U, which are attested. It's written down. It's been written down. Consonans U. Still, if that's less satisfying for you than just having a letter name for itself, I think ya and way, ya and way would be decent reconstructions following vowels of other letters, following examples of other letters. Right there. So, for our purposes today, really, it would just be simple enough to go ahead and just spell out the letters. So the answer to quo modo video scribitur, how do I write I see, would be consonans U, I, D, E, O, longo. Right, long O, O, longo. Quo modo Caesar scribitur, K, A, E, S, A, R. Quo modo solicitudo scribitur, S, O, L, L, I, K, I, T, U, D, O, longo. Had to think about that for a second. Solicitudo. All right. So again, additional exercises are available in the course document. I will follow this up with examples of pronunciation for you to go to. And I want to thank you guys for joining us, and I will see you guys all next class.